Welcome to the Glitter Girls. We are the Glitter Boom Girls show. That was my terrible attempt at the Three's Company theme. Yeah, I'm Robbie-Ann McPherson on the East Coast.
And I'm Amy Asbury on the West Coast.
And if you couldn't guess by now, today's topic is the Three's Company sitcom. So, I admittedly, because I'm a little older than Amy, so I'm a super child of the 70s. So I'm a little bit more familiar with this show than Amy is. But Amy, being the pop culture maven that she is, she also saw probably the later years, right, Aim?
Well, you know, it reran forever.
Right.
So most of my childhood was syndication. And what was the show, 79 to 84 or what? 78
to 83, something like that.
Yeah, so that was, you know, kindergarten through third grade, and I was not allowed to watch the show, but I knew all about it. You know, come on.
Yeah. Oh, wait, hold the phone. Breaking news. No, it was 1977 to 1984.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, yeah.
Courtesy Wikipedia.
Yeah.
So I was 9 when it came out, and I stayed up. It was on, if I recall correctly, it was on at 9 after, let's see, it was like Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley, and then something, and Three's Company, or Three's Company and something. And I think Soap maybe wasn't, I don't know.
Oh, Soap. Yeah,
Remember?
That was another one. My mom's like, you can't watch that.
Yeah. Well, my parents had no such issues with Three's Company. I don't know why. Looking back.
Come on. Well, there's a lot of double entendres and a lot of sexual innuendo. And it was, you know what I do think about it? I think when I think back on all these shows, there were so many that it was a family, and it was within the family. Here's what happened. The Waltons, Eight is Enough. And then there's this one about roommates. And yeah, you had Laverne and Shirley, but this was something we had not seen before, I feel.
You're right. And if you, especially the scandalous part of it, right? Like the idea that these unmarried young people, man and two females, would be living together. I mean, back in the day, for television, I'm not saying in real life, but for television, that was fairly pushing the envelope, as they say. Mm-hmm. So in the beginning, I remember when I was a little kid, I just never thought anything of it. To me, it was just like, oh yeah, like roommates, like Laverne and Shirley, or, you know, they all, because on the show, they were all just these platonic friends.
Right.
But, you know, of course, the joke was that they had to tell the landlord, Mr. Roper, that Jack was actually gay so that Mr. Roper would let him live with the two girls. And that became sort of a running, like you said, a running double entendre where Mr. Roper would suddenly suspect that Jack was in fact straight. And then they would all have to, you know, scheme and trick and do all these crazy things to convince Mr. Roper once again, no, Jack is in fact gay. And Mrs. Roper was in on it.
She knew right away.
Yeah, Mrs. Roper was like, you know, she called them the kids. She was always like on the kids' side. And, you know, she was always helping Stanley, or helping the kids fool Stanley about something. And of course, the Ropers, let's get into the cast here, because all of these actors and actresses, they were so talented at the physical comedy. And I know a lot of people are going to laugh at us for discussing seriously the physical comedy and the comedy of Three's Company. I don't care. Because when I watch it even now, you know, the storylines are simple. This isn't Shakespeare, but it's not supposed to be. And it's also the way that they tell the stories and everything, it's just kind of a tight, goofy sitcom. And for what they were trying to do, I think they really nailed it. So we're talking about it in that context. But Audra Lindley played Mrs. Roper. She was a very established actress of stage and screen. And Norman Fell, he was the same, already established actor and done a lot of series and movies and stuff. And Suzanne Summers, which by now everyone knows her today, I think, as like this entrepreneur, purveyor of the Thigh Master.
Yes,
it's all about the Thigh Master, and books and all that kind of stuff. And Joyce Dewitt, who she was a fairly serious actress at the time, not well known, but she was doing stage and stuff like that. And then the guy that the show basically hung on and was built around was John Ritter.
Oh.
I mean, R.I.P., just a beloved person. He's so beloved to this day. And if you watch the old shows and you watch just for his physical comedy, his reactions, his body language, falling over stuff, he was such a master of the pratfall. The show, I think, really was all about him. And not to take a thing away from the female actresses either, because Joyce Dewitt was usually the one that would, when I was a kid, I would just bust out laughing at the stuff she did.
Well, she was she played like the rational character.
Right. Right.
And she worked at like the flower shop, the arcade flower shop or something, and she loved plants.
Yeah.
Or, wasn't she, isn't that what she did?
Yep.
The flower shop?
She worked at the flower shop. And when I was little, I thought that I was going to grow up to be like this. Like all these shows, I thought, I'm going to grow up and I'm going to live with my friends for a while and we're going to run down to the Regal Beagle,
Well, you didn't though? Because I did. I lived a total Three's Company existence and it was so much fun.
Now tell me about that. Tell me about your Three's Company aim.
Well, I actually did live with actual gay guys usually. But there were times when I lived with straight guys, waiters and servers. I lived in a big house with a bunch of my male servers. And then I moved into a very Three's Company apartment with my gay friend and another girl. It was but it was mostly, I think it was two Chrissys and a Jack because I was like, woohoo. But I lived in a ton of roommate situations like this, but it was not the same stigma because it was the 90s and people were like, and it was in LA, so they were like, sure, come on in, everybody. And if anything, they're like, you're straight? What the hell? What's that all about?
What's wrong with you? I definitely had roommates, and I had a lot of fun. My college roommate, Janet, shout out Janet. We actually had a great time living in an apartment here in Buffalo when I was going to college. So, yeah, I guess I did. I mean, it was just the two of us. And in fact, Janet and I used to joke all the time about running down to the Regal Beagle. And the Regal Beagle, to us, was this scary, weirdo, like punk rock bar in Buffalo, which is still here. It was called at the time the old Pink Flamingo.
Oh my goodness.
Pink Flamingo, yeah. Now they tacked the old on it when a different Pink Flamingo club opened up. That was the new Pink. But you would go, this place, it's legendary in Buffalo.
Wow.
It's small and the walls are covered with graffiti and all kinds of stuff. The bathrooms are maybe the scariest place on earth. But they have the most fantastic steak sandwiches you'll ever eat. And the drinks are cheap, and they have a pool table. And
very Regal Beagle. Wait, did Regal Beagle have a pool table? I feel like it was like a leather, tufted leather seats.
Yeah.
Like red, was that right?
Yeah, Regal Beagle was like a pub.
It was a pub.
From what I've read, they based it, or it was inspired by the King's Head pub in Santa Monica, which I have been to. You've been there too, yeah?
So have I. And you know what? A lot of my childhood was spent in Santa Monica. So this was the show where when I looked at their front door, I thought, I know exactly what's outside their front door. Like to me, I was like, oh, I know that area. When they're on the beach on the boardwalk, I thought, oh, okay. And Jack falls off his bike looking at two chicks. I'm like, I've been right there.
Right. That's Dockweiler Beach, right?
And
in El Segundo.
Oh, it is? I thought it was a Santa Monica pier.
They did.
Boardwalk.
Yeah, they showed part when he falls off his bike. That's in El Segundo by Dockweiler Beach. But yes, they show them when they're at the carnival. They're on the Santa Monica pier. Right.
So I've been there so many times. Yes.
Sorry, breaking news. I was going to say, I don't know if our super fun listeners, by the way, we love you, if they know that when Jack is riding his bike and he turns to look at the brunette and then falls over in the sand, that brunette is actually Suzanne Summers in a wig.
Stop the press.
I know, right? Press is stopped.
Cute.
I know. I was like yesterday years old when I learned that. And my mind was blown. I love it. Yeah. I was like, oh my God, that was Suzanne Summers in a wig. Like I couldn't believe it.
So I love that. And I think that the exterior of that apartment is on 4th Street in Santa Monica, which if you ever go down there.
It is.
Yeah. And that's, you can kind of figure out where it is. And I think it was actually a house exterior, like an old house, or it is now or something. But.
Right. Yeah. And it's not like most sitcoms. The inside doesn't match the outside and stuff.
But it's neat. It's neat.
But it is cool to see the exterior. And the exterior from Google has not changed much. I'm afraid to give the address out.
Don't disturb. It's a single-family home that was built in 1928. And they only briefly show it in the beginning, you know. But obviously, don't go there and knock on the door. Don't be crazy.
Yeah. Don't you knock on that door.
That's right.
It doesn't belong to you.
I liked that I kind of got, because a lot of these shows, maybe Growing Pains or one of these other ones, I thought, what's outside the front door? I couldn't figure out what it looked like.
Yeah.
Family Ties, where was it? But this one I was like, oh, I know where they are. So anyway, I did like that. And it did kind of fit their single life. Yes.
And they show in the beginning, if you're wondering, the first couple seasons, if you watch the intro credits, when they show the Ropers, that's when they show the exterior of that house. And they sort of zoom in on the lower window because the Ropers were supposed to live below. And by the way, I found online somebody did a 3D rendering, like an architectural photo of the floor plan.
Like so what it would look like?
Yeah, I'm going to load that up on our social media. We're on Instagram and Twitter, folks, and we have a website, glitterboomgirls.com. So we'll put that up on there. But the apartment itself, as far as I know, had the same sofa for all the seasons, right? All 8 seasons.
I just remember these little orange round pillows.
Yes. Yeah, the sofa, it was like cream and orange and brown.
Well, it was cream, and it had 3 cushions across, and it was like these little starbursts. It was like a check pattern with a little starburst in the middle of each check, or something like that.
Very 70s.
Yeah, very 70s. And I feel like there's a lot of wicker shelves in the background and a lot of little palm fronds and little plants that Janet was trying to cultivate.
Yeah, also very 70s.
Wicker side tables and,
Yeah, indoor wicker in the 70s was just huge. Like everybody had wicker. Remember Mary Tyler Moore had it?
They had they had a patterned wallpaper, which was kind of, I think, a little palm pattern, and a ton of pictures on the wall for being single. Because usually single people, you have one futon in the middle of the room and one light bulb hanging down, but they were pretty well decorated for being single folk partying around town.
Yeah, and of course the apartment was Janet and Chrissy's first, and their female roommate moved out, and then the first episode, Jack falls asleep in their bathtub after a crazy party they had. And he, and it turns out he doesn't have a place to live, and blah blah blah. So the apartment would have been like a late 70s, mid 70s, late 70s professional girls apartment. And Chrissy was a secretary.
Right. She was a secretary.
Yeah. So Chrissy and Janet both had good jobs,
Okay.
Jack was not, he worked like odd jobs and stuff because he was in cooking school.
He was in cooking school, and I think he was like staying at the YMCA or something like that.
Right.
Now, did Jack say, am I remembering this correctly? He was in the Navy and he was a cook in the Navy or something?
Oh, yeah. He talked a lot. He references the Navy a lot. Yeah. Like, oh, when I was in the Navy, this, that, and the other thing. And we saw Chrissy's dad. He was a priest.
Yes, he was like he wasn't a priest. He was a preacher because I think a priest can't get married or whatever, but I think he was
that's
like a
right,
Presbyterian.
That's right. Right,
he was
right,
like some kind of Presbyterian or like Baptist or something like that. And he was, so was he not another person they had to hide the roommate from for that reason?
Yes.
Was he very conservative? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, in fact, a lot of the stories revolved around hiding the situation from somebody, one of their new boyfriends or somebody's parent. And yeah, in fact, I remember too, the guy who played Chrissy's dad came into Our Famous Deli once.
Oh, well, of course.
I did not wait on him, but it was really funny because, and folks, check on our first pilot episode. You can hear all about how Amy and I met 20 odd years ago, waiting tables at a quote unquote famous deli in LA.
And we waited on, I waited on John Ritter and his wife.
Yeah.
I think we talked about it.
We have to tell that story again though in this episode.
Okay.
But I remember I was the person where people would come to me in the shake room, and they'd be like, Robbie, table 30, who is that?
Right.
And then I'd poke my head out and I'd be like, oh, he was the so-and-so guy on the Love Boat episode where the married couple was,
so
I know. I have a thing for faces and I would always know which, I might not know their name, and somebody came in once and was like, who's that guy? Who is he? I'm like, oh, that's the guy that played Chrissy's father on Three's Company. And they were like, damn, I knew it. It was pretty fun.
That was you.
So John Ritter.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I only remember him coming in the one time with his wife. Did you wait on him?
I waited on them, yes. They were very kind. The thing I remember, they were just like polite as one is when they are eating at a restaurant, typically.
Hey, not all of them were polite, okay? # Joe Don Baker.
You know what? The funny thing I recall about this was that this is the only time the cooks came out from behind their little area.
Yes.
Because they flipped out over John Ritter.
Right.
Everybody else, there was adult film actresses. I mean, there was every single beautiful woman coming through the doors, but they never left their spot and their same face with the cigarette hanging out of their mouth. They were always back there like, whatever, and so unimpressed. But when John Ritter came in, they lost it. Every single one of them came out into the deli and were like, oh! So anyway.
Right. In fact, I went over and poured him and his beautiful wife, Amy Yasbeck, some coffee. And I said to him, I hope you don't mind. I mean, everyone knows who you guys are. And I said, everyone's freaking out. Would it be okay if the cooks came out and said hello to you? And I told him, I'm like, they never do this. And
they didn't. Yeah.
No, never. And I mean, rock stars came in there like super famous people, and they just couldn't give a rip. And here comes the one and only John Ritter. Everybody was freaking out. But then he was so incredibly humble, incredibly sweet. He was like touched, and he goes, oh my gosh, he said, it would be my pleasure. It would be my pleasure. And I sort of, I glanced at his wife because sometimes,
right,
especially with male celebrities, the female, the girlfriend or the wife, they get frustrated or they don't like it, or sometimes she was dying laughing. She just thought it was so cute. So then the cooks come out. And they're all like wringing their hands on their aprons. And the three of them all come out in a line, and they're all just like, we can't believe it. It's Jack Tripper. It's Jack Tripper. They were so, and he signed a bunch of stuff for them, and he was so nice. And celebrities, they can hide a lot, and many of them are 180 degrees from what they tell us they are. But I would bet a lot of money that he really was that wonderful person. So back to the actual show. Aim, do you have like a moment that you remember that, like when someone says Three's Company to you, which episode do you think of? What scene? What moment?
You know, I think of the costuming on the show, the hair, and the sets. They all kind of blend together. But I think of Chrissy's ponytails, which she said she modeled her character. Suzanne Summers modeled Chrissy Snow after dogs, Afghan dogs in particular, and also looking at 2-year-olds, the way they kind of walked all hunched and cute. She kind of those were the two things that I noticed about her.
Now wait a minute. We got to break that down a little. That is interesting. That is really interesting.
She wasn't some deep method actor, you know.
Right.
She wasn't at the actor's studio and all of this, but she did say she based it on, she didn't want to be overly provocative, so she kind of wanted to be a little bit more innocent. And I remember reading that the producers were like, okay, stop with these ponytails. It's not a show about hair. And then they kind of looked out in the audience and everybody had a ponytail or something like that, to where she's like, is it really not about hair? But I loved looking at the shorts, the crazy outfits, the clogs, the
clogs with socks.
The clogs with socks and the little shorts and the halters and the crazy. I looked at their clothing a lot, and the characters. And I feel like Janet and Chrissy were very often wearing khaki shorts. Is it just me? And also Terri later on. But
yes.
I looked as a whole at what they were wearing, all the physical comedy, that door in the kitchen that went back and forth. The swinging door, right. The swinging door. I remember kind of just Larry, the cheesy car salesman, and Mr. Furley in his ascots. So as a whole, I don't remember one episode. What about you? What was the one that you think of?
I don't think of one episode. I think of lots of moments. Of course, the iconic opening of the first couple series, not the later series where they're at the zoo and stuff like that.
I remember the zoo more. I remember Terri pretending she's a flamingo with her leg up. Right, with those. I remember them at that LA zoo by Griffith Park, or in Griffith Park. I remember that one. So you think of the beach one?
Yeah, I think of the beach one because that was my introduction to the show. And I also think of the wardrobes. I thought in the first couple seasons that, especially the first season, the wardrobe that Suzanne Summers wore was so cool because she had a lot of she had a lot of tailored vests with a shirt underneath, like a button down or something, and the gauchos.
The gauchos, that's what they were called.
Otherwise known as culottes. I mean, with the boots, of course. That was so freaking hot and stylish when I was 9 or 10, and that was the thing that I would look up to. Like if Mom and I were in the supermarket or something and I saw a lady with, the gauchos and the boots, I'd be like, oh, and I just thought they were so glamorous.
She wore a lot of turtlenecks.
Yeah.
And her pants were always tucked into the boots, mind you, that went up to the knee, and were very often high-heeled. And then her shirt was always tucked in, and there was a belt. She loved a belt. I mean, I don't know if it's her or the costumer who costumed her.
Yeah, Joyce Dewitt, also, her character Janet, also loved the belts. And I always noticed the belts were always cinched one loop too tight.
They were super, super tight. Yeah. And I just feel like there was a ton of maybe satin and a lot of running shorts on Jack, and then the tube socks and lots of like zippered up, kind of like a sweatsuit.
Yeah, Jack was often most of the time I recall him in jeans and like one of those like velour zip up long sleeve sweatshirt things.
Yes.
Yeah, and Mrs. Roper's outfits, I mean, those were iconic. I mean, the muumuu, she had these garish muumuus with these giant bauble earrings and bauble necklaces, and then some giant bauble ring, and the wig. That wig's got to be in the Smithsonian. Audra Lindley's wig. I hope it is.
Every grandma had that hair. I mean, they just did.
Yeah, they had that hair on a stand
on a stand. My grandmother
like
had a
when they
couple
went
of
to bed.
those. You're right. They put it right next to them on a foam head.
Yeah, and I've been watching a ton of Three's Company lately because if you go to an app called Pluto TV, and this is not a sponsorship. I mean, we wish it was a sponsorship. But anyway, Pluto TV has all these classic TV channels where they just run nothing but one show. There's an Addams Family one, which I'm glued to a lot because the Addams Family, one of my favorites. Love that show. But they also have a Three's Company one. So I've been watching a lot of Three's Company. And the interesting thing about the Ropers storyline is the constant joke about how Stanley just never wants to get it on with Mrs. Roper.
He has a headache. He's like,
right.
He kind of flipped the switch.
Right.
He always tells her he has a headache.
And they're always just ragging on each other. But she's always this frustrated housewife, And
so she was the Peg Bundy before Peg Bundy.
Yes. Oh my God. That is seriously brilliant, Amy. She was Peg Bundy before. Yeah. Oh, you didn't? Regardless. She was Peg Bundy before Peg Bundy. Yeah, totally.
And that was the joke because I guess women of a certain age hadn't publicly had that joke thrown at them before that, and they thought it was funny.
And Audra Lindley's delivery, brilliant. I mean, she was such a deadpan, and the way you could tell she was a stage actress because she was her gestures and everything. She was just so big, but it was perfect for that role. And and here's Norman Fell, just like he made famous that mugging for the camera, like breaking that third wall and just giving that look to the camera. Like that was such a total Mr. Roper look. And then the Ropers leave. I don't know, what was it, 3 seasons in, maybe something like that.
They were a hit, so they thought, yeah, you're right.
So then the network said, hey, let's give them their own show. So they gave them their own show, and they bring in the legendary Don Knotts as Mr. Furley, right? So the problem was the Ropers was not a hit. It just, that whole joke, it couldn't play on its own, I guess. But Mr. Furley was like, he was an instant classic. I mean, for whoever's idea it was to say, hey, let's get Don Knotts, I hope they got a promotion, because
I always thought Mr. Furley was gay when I was a kid because of his outfits. Oh. Because a lot of gay men dressed like that in the 70s, which cracks me up because, I mean, wasn't he flamboyantly dressed?
No. See, if you look back,
you thought he was a ladies' man, though. He liked Lana, right?
Yeah,
I mean, now that I'm thinking about it, he was after Lana, but she liked Jack.
Yeah, Lana came around later too. She was like the older woman who, had this breathy voice, and Jack. That's something interesting. So every character had a certain way of saying Jack. So Lana,
I just remember Jack. I remember Janet's Jack.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Joyce Dewitt. Jack. Right. And then Chrissy was Jack. Like it was like Jack. And Mr. Roper, well, Jack. Like they all had this exact. It's like Darren on Bewitched, the first Darren, Dick York, Sam. It was like this iconic way of saying Jack for all these other characters. And Larry, the car salesman, Jack. So
Larry.
I think that was sort of a calling card for each character. But in the day, men of his age were wearing those leisure suits, and they had the scarf just cracked me up.
The ascot.
Because he just thought he was so, so swinging. It was like a swinger thing. He was kind of a swinger guy.
So
like he fancied himself a swinger.
Was that kind of an outdated look at the time then?
Not exactly.
Or it just was too young for him?
No, not exactly outdated. It was just a certain look at that time.
And then I think his brother owned the building, and then he was the manager.
Yeah, his brother Bart. Right. Bart owned the building, because that's why the Ropers left. Bart bought the building or something, and right, and then Mr. Furley comes in, and But you know what I don't remember? I don't remember. Mr. Furley knew that Jack wasn't gay, though, didn't he?
No, he couldn't have, because then what would the joke be?
Yeah, but I don't remember. No, I think Mr. Furley knew. Because I can't think of any times where they were trying to hide from Mr. Furley that Jack was gay. Or, I mean, that Jack was straight.
We'll have to look into it.
Yeah, why don't...
I can't remember.
Why don't you discuss Joyce DeWitt's hair evolution while I look this up?
Well, guys, I don't remember the order of her hair because I saw all of these episodes.
Oh, I do.
Out of order.
I'll give you the order.
So the first one was the Dorothy Hamill kind of flipped?
The first look was the short Dorothy Hamill little look. The second look was the floofy perm, where it was like, and I don't know what you call it. It's like it was like
big curls.
Yeah, it was like big curls, but the shape of it was kind of a round helmet or something.
Rounded, yes.
Yeah, like it wasn't a Facts of Life perm, a mullet perm. It was
big curls. Let's say that. It was a big curl look.
Yeah, like all around.
When did that little short spiky pixie come in?
Wow, I'm going to say either the third or fourth season, maybe the third season. And she went and she sort of changed her whole look, like all of a sudden, because the first two seasons she never wore makeup, or she had minimal makeup, and her look was very natural because she was sort
supposed
of
to be level-headed and down to earth,
right? And she's the Marianne to Chrissy's Ginger kind of thing, right? Because Chrissy had tons of makeup and tons.
And she was from Speedway, Indiana, by the way. Don't forget. And she was an aspiring dancer. I don't recall that, but go on.
Yeah, Joyce DeWitt was actually a dancer. But then the one season, all of a sudden, she turns up with like loads of smoky eye and this pixie cut thing, and she looked fabulous. And it was very cutting edge for that time. Like, she really set off a whole era. That whole early Pat Benatar look, that was like launched basically by Joyce DeWitt, because she shows up like that on TV, and all of a sudden, everywhere you look, you see the heavy eye and the pixie, and it was like, wow, this is crazy.
Interesting.
Yeah, and
I read that she did not have a lot of creative control over the character, which, in the defense of the producers, I mean, they had their thing. She was hired to be the actress, and they were like, okay, we don't want your input. But she was irritated that Jack appeared to have a lot of input on his character, and they wouldn't let her give her notes on Janet. But what she did have control over was she would come back with these different hairdos, and she said she wanted to make it seem as if Janet was growing as a person and growing as a woman and going through different things. So she purposely did the different hair and came back with different hair each season.
Wow. So that was her way of having input, of saying, yeah. So I started to type into Google, did Mr. Furley know? And then it pops up, like the first thing you see is, did Mr. Furley know that Jack Tripper was gay? And so, or not gay. I keep doing it. Did Mr. Furley know that Jack Tripper was straight? So, so according to this fandom thing, he was also tricked into thinking that that Jack Tripper was gay.
Yes.
But I don't know if, okay. So Furley, according to Three's Company Wiki. It says, Furley is also tricked into believing that Jack is gay in order for him to continue living with Janet and Chrissy. Also, like Roper, Furley liked to occasionally crack jokes about Jack at his expense. So after a few years of knowing Jack and the roommates, there's a confession. So Mr. Furley does kind of find out near the end.
Wait, really?
Yeah. And to your point, Amy, the Three's Company Wiki says Furley often wears outlandish leisure suits in very loud colors with ascots. Usually his shirts are very brightly colored. For his role as Mr. Furley, beginning with midway through the fourth season, Knott's first with the show, Mr. Furley began donning a toupee. The Furley toupee. That was some toupee, by the way. That little gray...
That's a good band name.
Thing. Furley's toupee.
at the Troubadour. You know, I did love Chrissy. And of course, many of us know there was contract disputes. And instead of getting, what was she making? 90 grand an episode, she wanted 135 or something, or maybe she was making 30.
It was a lot less. There was a huge disparity. Suzanne Summers, after the second season, right? She was making $30,000 an episode, which was a lot in 1979, whatever. And John Ritter, who basically was the star of the show, he was making $150,000.
Right.
So Suzanne's husband / manager said, we want Suzanne to make the same. And at the time, and again, think of the context, this was 40 years ago, basically. They said no. And they reduced her time to like a minute per episode. And she would be
called in or something.
She'd be seen on a payphone or something. And she didn't even do any scenes with the other actors. And that was it. Then she was gone. And then I think
they pinch hitted really quickly. They grabbed Jenny Lee Harrison, who was a cheerleader.
Right.
And she was used to physical comedy, and she said she did all the physical comedy, no problem. And I remember her wearing the designer jeans and being very peppy.
Yeah, her look was the early 80s, late 70s, designer jean with the tight belt, the boots, and like a low-cut shirt, and the Farrah hair, like the big, floofy, feathered hair. And she played Cindy Snow. Was she the sister or the cousin?
She was the first cousin of Chrissy.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. So, and then she lasted, I don't know, a season or two, and then was replaced by
Priscilla Barnes, who played Terri Alden, and she was a nurse at like the Westwood, some kind of hospital.
Fictional hospital.
Yeah, she was from Massachusetts, and they made her like a little more, intelligent. She wasn't as kooky and accident prone maybe as the others. So Cindy Snow was supposedly a veterinary student at UCLA. That was the thing. And she went off to become a vet or something.
Oh.
And then Terri was supposed to be a little more mature, and she was a little more covered, but she did show her legs a lot. And she did, she had a different, what do you remember of Terri Alden on the show?
Mostly, I remember how good she was at the physical comedy too, because you're right, she was not fulfilling like a dumb blonde role like Cindy Snow kind of was. And Terri was much more savvy, and she was basically much more like Janet, right? With a fully rounded person.
She wasn't as like jiggle TV as they, I think they were trying to something different.
She was a little bit more, her character, let's say, was a little bit more substantive. But when you got the three of them together, I just thought that Priscilla Barnes and Joyce Dewitt and John Ritter, whatever they were doing, they had like great chemistry, and Terri was pretty funny. She had a lot of stuff happen to her,
Yes.
Yeah, like there was always something getting dumped on her, or something.
Didn't Jack dump something on her or do something he thought was silly? And I just remember the camera kind of staying on her face, and she was very hurt by Jack.
Right.
And I just remember going,
Jack overdid it. Jack went too far.
Jack went too far.
Yeah, because wasn't that when they were hazing her in the very beginning, and
yes, and then you felt really, really bad for her. You were like, oh, that was too much.
Here's a fun fact about Priscilla Barnes. She looks so much like my mother when my mom was young, in her 20s. Yeah, like they look so much alike, it's kind of scary. Yeah.
In real life, maybe this is what you noticed in the chemistry. Joyce DeWitt really, really liked Priscilla Barnes and respected her and had a lot more of a friendship with her outside of the show. And I think they're still friends. They really, really got on. So that could have been something. And it's not that she disliked the other women, but she did not click with them in the same way.
Oh, that's interesting. I had a wonderful occasion to meet briefly Joyce Dewitt at the world's largest disco.
Where else?
Check that out, folks. Google it. If you don't know what the world's largest disco in Buffalo is, Google that and make your plans for when it happens again next year. Anyway, she was there as a celebrity guest because they do these pictures. So you get the picture with them, and then you pay for the picture, but it's a fundraiser. So she was there with John Schneider, Mindy Cohn from The Facts of Life.
Stop.
I know, right? And there was somebody else there too. Oh gosh, I'm forgetting now who the fourth celebrity was. But anyway, so I was kind of backstage, which is sort of a long story, but in the little VIP area, and I asked if I could take a picture with them, and my friend was photographing stuff for the event. So I said, hey, would you guys mind? Can I just get a quick picture? They couldn't have been nicer. And actually, the picture is hilarious because I'm so excited. I look like such a damn fool.
I would have been so excited too, though.
Well, I was really freaking out. I was like, oh my God. And if you check out our Instagram, Glitter Bee Girls, it's actually on our Instagram. But anyway, and here's the thing about Joyce Dewitt. People, I was, a foot from her face, okay? Like, I was really close to her. She is so stunningly beautiful.
Oh, wow.
And, we can all do the math and figure out that she's not, 30 years old, right, anymore. But she looks absolutely stunning. And I don't mean stunning for her age. I mean stunning. She still is rocking the pixie, but it's got a little bit more of a modern cut to it. Like, it's not like she's
not severe,
stuck in the past. No. It's just a flattering look on her.
Jet black still?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was jet black. And she was just... she looks great. She's like fit and bright-eyed and what a nice lady. Yeah, I had a really nice moment, and I appreciated so much them just, indulging a fan. Let me take a picture. That was really really fun. Yeah, they were all three of them were really, really nice. And Mindy Cohn and John Schneider as well. They both look great and seemed to be having fun at the disco, which is always cool. All right, so that's our Three's Company, our first Three's Company show, because we are going to cover this topic again. I mean, there's so much we haven't said. So much. Right, so thanks for listening to us. I'm Robbie-Ann McPherson.
And I'm Amy Asbury.
And we're the Glitter Boom Girls, and we wanna thank you guys for hanging out with us every week. We just love doing this, and hit us up on Instagram or Twitter, Glitter Bee Girls on Instagram and Twitter, and our website is glitterboomgirls.com. So all three, you can find a way to contact us or tell us what you love or hate, or we read it all. So anyway, take care, everybody. Have a wonderful day.
Bye, everyone.